r/ask Reddit. You go on a first date with someone. What habit or characteristic is a deal breaker? Spending the whole time on their phone. Had a first date with a guy once. At some point I asked him to look up something on his phone. I forget exactly what the context was, and he told me he had intentionally left his phone in his car for our date. Color me impressed. We dated for nearly a year. They only want to talk about themselves. I once had a 2-hour blind date. By the end, I knew everything about this girl. I knew all of her cats by name and what their favorite movies were. She asked me literally nothing and just kept jumping from topic to topic. At the end of the date, she wanted to trade numbers, and I couldn't help but ask what's my name, and she didn't know, so I just paid for my meal and left. I'm sorry, her cats had favorite movies? I'm imagining you going over to her place and a tabby rubs against your foot. Oh, you must be Matilda, who loves natural born killers. Good choice. Oh, and is that Randolph? You really couldn't think of anything better than snakes on a plane? Constantly talking about their exes. On their phone the whole time. If you can't disconnect for an hour or so to engage with me, then it's not going to work. Right. I'm on a date as I'm reading this entire thread and I can't believe how much of it I agree with. This beach keeps tutting and clearing her throat loudly and I don't know why. Learn some manners. Too much discussion about money. So how much do you think you're gonna get when your parents finally croak? When she puts her smoke out in her baked potato. Mayo. I'm assuming there's a story behind this. He was still hungry and wanted to finish the baked potato. She done gone and ruined it. Someone who makes me read their bad poetry. This has happened to me more than once. Editors, I just woke up to a bunch of responses and I can't possibly reply to them all individually. I don't hate poetry. I very much like it. Especially Vaughan poetry. However, on a first date, there is a huge difference between, have you read this poem by X? What do you think of this bit? And here is my notebook. Read it all and tell me what you think. Story bits for those who asked. The first time this happened I was 18 and we met through mutual friends. While it wasn't great, it wasn't emo angsty levels of bad. Unfortunately he then started sending me poetry he had written about me and calling me his muse. This after having met once. He then went full stalker. So yeah, nope. Second time was some years later. It was bad, but I was not mean about it. We continued chatting, then said goodnight politely and parted. The next day he went from I had a really nice time, give me a call, to I am sure you are busy, but please reply, to clearly you are ignoring me so let's never speak again, in the space of a 3-hour barrage of text messages. I was at work so I didn't see the messages till lunchtime. Getting so drunk on the first date that you can't figure out Uber and I have to drive you home. No, you can't stay on my couch. I don't know you. I did this once. That relationship ended up lasting 2 years though. Was going to just be a hookup. My first time doing that, so I got drunk to not be nervous. Got too drunk. He took me back to his house and out me in pajamas and fed me pizza and held my hair while I puked. I thought he would never want to see me again, but he was cool about it. I was once set up to go on a blind date with this girl. We were given each other's email addresses and so I hit her up. We exchanged a few pleasantries, then set up a date time to finally meet. The day of, I get an email from her in the morning with an attachment. I open up the attachment and there is a questionnaire with like 25-30 questions on it. She requested I kindly fill out the questionnaire before we meet. I quickly reviewed the questions before sending her a reply saying that it's probably best we don't meet. I don't know what characteristic she embodied, but I'd say that was a deal breaker. What kind of questions were they? I don't recall the exact questions, as it was a long time ago, but I do remember some were as innocuous as dog or cat, but others required further explanation like who is your favorite person in the world? What has she done to make you like them so much? It was insane. I've had job interviews that were less thorough. Lying, even, if not especially, about small things. I was once told that someone had gone down a hill on their bike so fast a speed camera clocked them at 234 miles per hour, ignoring that that's faster than the world record on a bike. Why? Why are you making this up? Zero opinions on anything. If I'm going to date someone, I want some sort of brains or passion going on up there. I know a girl who asks every guy she goes on a date with what his credit score is. She wants to make sure they're financially stable. Also, she's 23 and doesn't know how to pump gas. I don't hate people who smoke particularly, but my parents smoked so much that I promised myself to never date someone who smoked. I used to smoke. I have been smoke free for 3.5 years now. It is amazing how different I smell, and how I never noticed. I don't know how non-smokers put up with being around me smoking all the time. It is extremely hard. Good for you. Being a know-it-all, I had lunch with someone who called the table salt sodium chloride and used the bread as a way to tell me everything he knew about complex carbohydrates, some of which wasn't even correct, and their connections to evolutionary theory. Just felt like he was compensating for something. Someone who doesn't ask about me, it shows that they don't actually care. They end up being 3 badgers in a trench coat. Right, I hate when that happens. Repeatedly interrupting me when I'm talking, especially when I'm answering a question they asked. It tells me they're not actually engaged in what I'm saying. Lying about their appearance. Very specific example, guess which one? But you see their pictures. They look nice and then they are different in person. What's the point? As a rule, if they have dog ears, a butterfly halo, or are puking a rainbow, what you see isn't what you'll get. There are so many Tinder profiles where girls will have 3 pictures, all selfies, all with dog ears, big cartoony eyes and heavy Snapchat filters. It makes it way too obvious that you're trying to hide something, and even if you're not, then that's weird lol. Children, I wish all the best to all the single parents in the world, but I am not signing up to be a step-parent. As a single parent, I respect that you acknowledge this is a deal breaker. I wish people who feel that way would be more upfront. I'm a package deal and that's just not for everybody. Oh, I have another. If a person tells you they are in love with you after one day together, they might try to move into your house, then try to attack you when you ask them to leave, but that's a story for another time. Heavy breathing, open mouth chewer or close-minded. So taking the stairs is a bad idea? The amount of guys who think negging is a good flirting technique is ridiculous. Contrary to what you read on WikiHow, insulting a girl doesn't make her want to impress you, it just makes her realize you're dong. One guy I matched with on Tinder asked me for my Snapchat, and when I gave it to him he said, "Oh, I don't want it. I'm not attracted. Wouldn't want to go on a date or anything disgusting like that." He was trying to flirt, but it was an instant turn off. I'm not here to be insulted or put down, and being rude isn't cute. Reminding me of my dad. I love my dad, honestly, but I don't want to date him. When I met my wife's dad the first time, I realized I was pretty much the complete opposite of him. My sister dated guys that were the complete opposite as well. But unfortunately for her, our dad is really nice and cool, so she dated a lot of a-holes. She ended up with a guy who has a personality a lot like our dad while looking or sounding nothing at all like him. My coworker, on the other hand, is currently upset that her daughter is dating an older guy who looks and acts just like her father, and has the same profession. Here is a great story. First date in college. I drive a truck and live in a city, so spots are tight. This spot is particularly tight, so I say, "This is a tight spot, so watch your door when you open it." Girl, are you telling me how to open my door? Doesn't pay basic attention and slams the door into the other car. OMG, she's such an idiot. I absolutely hate people like that, when they're sassy for no reason and proceed to do what you explicitly said not to do. Asking me 0 questions about myself while talking incessantly about themselves. It's alarming how many dudes do this. Why bother going on a date with another human if all you want is to hear yourself talk? I once got to witness a wonderfully awkward first date at a botanic garden where the guy kept repeatedly saying, "So tell me about yourself," to the girl, and then would interrupt her to talk about himself as she was trying to say something. It eventually ended when he suggested they go back to her place and she responded with, "You weren't even going to take me to dinner first," and left. If they order shots, I always do brunch as a first date because it places zero expectation on what happens after. So, if you order ducking shots at 11:30 am on a Saturday, we probably aren't going to work out. If they're going out with me, that's the deal breaker right there. Shows severe lack of judgment on their part. Honey, I'd like a divorce. You failed the test. You slept with me on no less than 773 occasions, married me, and procreated two admittedly beautiful children with me. All of these demonstrate a severe lack of judgment on your part. Also, is that cousin of yours that lives in Vermont still single? Self-deprecating to the point where everything needs to be somehow connected in a negative way back to yourself. Like literally everything. While chatting it's even more obvious. Sad faces all the time. I'm dumb. I don't deserve what I've achieved, etc. Anyone who doesn't understand why a first meeting in public is best for women. But then how am I supposed to wear her skin as a jacket next week? Patience is a virtue. One of my best friends casually began to date one of my ex-girlfriend's friends. He was really starting to like her and took her out on consistent dates, a few sleepovers, etc. My ex-girlfriend told me this girl was texting her about her date with my friend later that night. My ex asked her if she was into him as much as he was. Her little response was no, but free food is free food. I was hurt for him. Devastated. I didn't want him to feel what I felt and I wasn't even the one dating her. I took my friend, roommate at the time also, aside that afternoon and asked him to please delete her number and never talk to her again. I didn't say why. I just asked him to trust me and to please stop seeing her. It's for the honest best. Knowing me for years and years. He politely accepted my request and deleted her, without question. He knew I knew something and understood I was helping him avoid emotional pain and disappointment. He is too nice of an individual to experience that. Trust goes a long way. Their drinking manners. If they insist I drink, or suggest drinks shots after I've declined multiple times, I'll either think you have a problem, or you're trying to get me drunk, both of which I don't want. Men who insist you come over, or they come over, I'm all about prolonging a good date, and would love to go to another spot, but I really hate when men invite me over to their place, or suggest coming to mine at the end of the night. Even worse when they get super pouty when I decline. For me, during at least some point during a first date I think hobbies or passions are brought up. I really don't care what hobbies you have. You could be into the dumbest shit ever, as long as you are into something. Anything. My red flag is when she says she goes to bars and clubs, and thinks that's a hobby. I nope the duck out. Wearing a necklace made up of hair and severed fingers from each of your previous dates. That'll about do it for me. The type of guy who needs to flirt with the waitress or just be heavy. Referring to going to the restroom as going make tinkles. I wanted to leave on the spot. If they start murdering people without consent. Total deal breaker. You know how people joke that buying a dog is just buying a tragedy in 10 years? That's basically how I feel about dating a smoker long term. That she doesn't accept my raccoon pet named Stuart. Being way too touchy. One time I went on a movie date. Mans took out his thing out of nowhere. I was like, woo, there's people and this is our first date. If you smack your lips, or chew with your mouth open it's game over. Not sure I could even make it to the end of dinner. Flat earther believer, anti-vaxxer, rude to staff, tries too hard to look quirky or talks like an anime character. Also waterboarding conversationalist, like you have to torture them to hold a conversation. I went on a date with a girl. This date was a disaster. She got food in her hair and all over the place. She wouldn't get off her phone. And she stabbed herself in the cheek with her fork because she wasn't paying attention. I've never seen her since. If they call me exotic, if they make repeated remarks on how beautiful my skin tone is, even worse when they point out that they've never been with anybody of my ethnic heritage, or when they've only dated women of ethnicities with a similar appearance to mine, feels a bit fetishizing. Whoa, you made it to the end? You're a ducking beast. I'll cut you a deal. Smash like and subscribe for more curated content, bruh. It's free and that's a great price.